Welcome back to Savage Harvest and Heal, where we help gardeners grow healthier plants, bigger harvests, and stronger gardens using practical, proven techniques that anyone can follow. If your tomato plants looked amazing a few weeks ago but are suddenly turning yellow, dropping flowers, curling their leaves, or producing fewer fruits, don't assume your gardening season is over. July is one of the most challenging months for tomato plants, and even experienced gardeners can make small mistakes that lead to disappointing harvests. The good news is that most of these problems are completely preventable if you know what to watch for. Tomatoes behave very differently in July than they do in spring. The intense heat, stronger sunlight, rapid evaporation, and increased pest activity create conditions that put your plants under constant stress. What worked perfectly in May or June may actually harm your tomatoes now. That's why understanding these common July mistakes can mean the difference between baskets full of juicy tomatoes and plants that struggle just to survive. Today, we're covering 5 tomato growing mistakes you must never make in July. One of them quietly kills thousands of tomato plants every summer, and many gardeners don't realize they're making the mistake until it's too late. Make sure you stay until the end because each mistake builds on the previous one, and the final tips could completely change the way you care for tomatoes during hot weather. Let's begin with the first mistake. The first mistake is watering on a fixed schedule instead of watering according to your soil. This may sound surprising because gardeners are often told to water consistently, and that advice is correct, but consistency doesn't mean following the calendar. In July, weather conditions can change dramatically from one day to the next. One day might be cloudy and cool, while the next is blazing hot with temperatures soaring. If you water every morning simply because it's your routine, you may end up overwatering your tomatoes after a cool night or underwatering them after an extremely hot afternoon. Tomato roots need both moisture and oxygen. When soil stays constantly soaked, oxygen levels drop, making it difficult for roots to breathe. Weak roots can't absorb nutrients efficiently, and stressed plants become much more vulnerable to diseases. On the other hand, allowing the soil to become bone dry before watering deeply stresses the plant and often leads to blossom end rot, fruit cracking, and blossom drop. Instead of relying on the calendar, check the soil itself. Push your finger 2 to 3 inches into the ground near the base of the plant. If the soil still feels cool and moist, wait another day before watering. If it feels dry at that depth, it's time to water thoroughly. When you do water, aim for deep watering rather than frequent light sprinkling. A shallow watering encourages roots to stay near the surface, where the soil heats up quickly and dries out fast. Deep watering encourages roots to grow farther down into cooler soil, making plants much more resilient during heat waves. Morning remains the best time to water because it allows leaves that accidentally get wet to dry quickly, reducing the risk of fungal diseases. Watering in the middle of a hot afternoon often wastes water through evaporation, while watering late at night can leave the soil damp for too long, encouraging disease in humid conditions. Many gardeners also make the mistake of spraying water directly over the entire plant. Tomatoes prefer water at the base of the stem, allowing moisture to soak into the root zone without constantly wetting the foliage. Wet leaves combined with warm temperatures create ideal conditions for fungal diseases to spread. Another helpful habit is watering slowly. If water is poured too quickly onto dry soil, much of it simply runs away before soaking in. A slow soak allows moisture to penetrate deeply where the roots actually need it. The second mistake is leaving the soil exposed to the scorching July sun. Bare soil may not seem like a problem, but it can become one of the biggest reasons tomato plants struggle during the hottest weeks of summer. Under direct sunlight, surface temperatures can become much hotter than the surrounding air, stressing roots and causing moisture to evaporate much faster. Many gardeners notice they need to water every day, without realizing that exposed soil is partly responsible. As moisture disappears quickly, tomato plants experience repeated cycles of stress that reduce fruit production and weaken overall growth. One of the simplest ways to solve this problem is by adding mulch around your tomato plants. Mulch acts like a protective blanket, shielding the soil from direct sunlight while reducing evaporation. It also keeps soil temperatures more stable, allowing roots to remain cooler during extreme heat. Organic materials such as straw, shredded leaves, untreated grass clippings, pine needles, or finished compost all make excellent mulch choices. Spread a layer about 2 to 3 inches thick around each plant, leaving a small gap around the main stem to prevent excessive moisture from sitting directly against it. Besides conserving water, mulch offers several additional benefits. It suppresses weeds that compete with tomatoes for nutrients and moisture. It also prevents soil from splashing onto leaves during watering or rainfall, reducing the spread of soil-borne diseases. As organic mulch slowly breaks down, it improves soil structure and feeds beneficial organisms that help keep your garden healthy. Earthworms become more active, beneficial microbes multiply, and the soil gradually becomes richer and easier for roots to explore. Gardeners who mulch often notice they water less frequently while harvesting healthier tomatoes throughout the hottest part of the season. If you grow tomatoes in containers, mulching is just as valuable. Containers heat up much faster than garden beds because all sides are exposed to the sun. A layer of mulch on top of the potting mix helps reduce temperature swings and slows moisture loss. Positioning containers where they receive morning sun but some protection from the harshest afternoon heat can also make a noticeable difference during July. The third mistake is feeding tomatoes too much nitrogen during fruit production. Many gardeners believe that if fertilizer helps plants grow, adding more fertilizer will produce even better results. Unfortunately, tomatoes don't work that way. Nitrogen is extremely important during the early stages of growth because it supports strong stems and lush green leaves. However, once plants begin flowering and producing fruit, excessive nitrogen shifts the plant's energy back toward leaf production instead of tomatoes. The result is often impressive-looking plants covered with thick green foliage but very few fruits. At first glance, gardeners may think their tomatoes are thriving because the plants appear large and healthy. Weeks later, they wonder why harvest baskets remain nearly empty. Too much nitrogen can also make tomato plants more attractive to certain pests because the tender new growth is easier for insects to feed on. In addition, dense foliage reduces airflow, creating humid conditions that encourage fungal diseases. During July, your tomato plants need balanced nutrition. Fertilizers slightly higher in phosphorus and potassium help support flowering, fruit development, and overall plant strength. Potassium is especially important because it helps plants regulate water, improves fruit quality, and increases tolerance to heat stress. Organic gardeners have several excellent options. Well-finished compost provides slow, balanced nutrition without overwhelming plants. Compost tea can offer gentle feeding while supporting beneficial microbes. Crushed eggshells add calcium gradually, though they are not a quick fix for blossom end rot. Wood ash can supply potassium in small amounts if your soil is not already alkaline, while banana peels can be composted rather than buried fresh beside plants, where they decompose slowly. Remember that blossom end rot is usually caused more by inconsistent watering than by a lack of calcium in the soil. Keeping soil moisture steady is often more effective than adding extra calcium products. Always follow fertilizer instructions carefully. More is not better. Healthy tomato plants grow steadily, produce flowers regularly, and develop fruit continuously without excessive leafy growth. As July continues, you'll likely notice some older leaves beginning to yellow near the bottom of the plant. While it's normal for a few aging leaves to decline, widespread yellowing can indicate watering issues, nutrient imbalance, or disease. Regular observation helps you catch problems early before they spread throughout the plant. We're only halfway through the list, and the next mistake is one that silently destroys countless tomato plants every single summer, because most gardeners don't recognize the warning signs until serious damage has already been done. The fourth mistake is allowing tomato plants to stay crowded and poorly ventilated. This is one of the fastest ways to lose healthy plant in July, and it's the mistake that quietly kills more tomatoes than many gardeners realize. As the weather heats up, tomato plants grow rapidly. New branches appear almost overnight, leaves become thicker, and before long, the plant turns into a dense mass of foliage. At first, this seems like a sign of success. After all, a large green plant looks healthy. But hidden inside that thick growth is a dangerous problem. Air can no longer move freely through the plant. Without proper airflow, humidity builds up between the leaves. Morning dew stays on the foliage longer, rainwater dries slowly, and the inside of the plant becomes the perfect environment for fungal diseases. Early blight, septoria leaf spot, and other common tomato diseases thrive in these warm, damp conditions. The scary part is that you usually don't notice the problem until the damage has already started. One day the leaves look fine, and a few days later you begin seeing brown spots, yellow patches, or leaves curling and falling off. By then, the disease may already be spreading from leaf to leaf. Crowded plants also make life easier for pests. Aphids, whiteflies, spider mites, hornworms, and stink bugs can hide deep inside thick foliage where they're difficult to spot. By the time you notice them, they've often multiplied significantly. The solution isn't to strip your tomato plant bare. Tomatoes still need plenty of leaves because leaves are the plant's food factories. Instead, remove only what the plant no longer needs. Start by removing yellowing, diseased, or damaged leaves. These leaves contribute very little to the plant and often become the starting point of disease. Next, remove leaves touching the ground. Soil contains fungal spores that can splash onto lower leaves during watering or rain. Keeping the lowest 8 to 12 inches of the plant free of leaves greatly reduces this risk. If you're growing indeterminate tomatoes, regularly pinch off unnecessary suckers growing between the main stem and branches. Left unchecked, these suckers become full-size stems that crowd the plant and compete for nutrients. Pruning also improves sunlight penetration. Tomatoes need sunlight not only for photosynthesis, but also to help ripen fruit evenly. When fruits remain buried deep inside heavy foliage, they often mature more slowly and stay damp longer after rain. Supporting your tomatoes properly is equally important. Plants lying on the ground or leaning against each other trap moisture and make harvesting difficult. Strong cages, sturdy stakes, or trellises keep plants upright, improve airflow, and reduce disease pressure throughout the season. Take a few minutes every week to inspect your plants from top to bottom. Look underneath leaves where pests often hide. Examine stems for discoloration or damage. Check developing fruits for unusual spots, cracks, or insect feeding. Early detection almost always leads to easier solutions. Another mistake many gardeners make is ignoring weather forecasts. If several rainy days are expected, inspect your plants beforehand. Remove damaged leaves, improve airflow if needed, and avoid overhead watering. After storms, check plants again for broken branches or signs of disease. One simple weekly inspection can save an entire harvest. Now let's move to the fifth mistake, and it's one that catches gardeners by surprise every July. The fifth mistake is harvesting tomatoes too late. Many people believe tomatoes should stay on the vine until they become perfectly deep red. While that may seem logical, it isn't always the best choice during the hottest part of summer. Extreme July heat can actually reduce fruit quality. Tomatoes left on the vine too long are more likely to crack after sudden rainfall or heavy watering. Birds, squirrels, insects, and even sunscouts become much bigger threats as fruits remain exposed. Tomatoes continue ripening after they're picked. In fact, harvesting them when they've reached the breaker stage, when the fruit has just started changing from green to its final color, often produces tomatoes with excellent flavor while reducing the risk of damage. Picking fruit regularly also encourages the plant to keep producing. When ripe tomatoes remain on the vine for too long, the plant senses that its seeds have matured and may slow the production of new flowers and fruits. Frequent harvesting keeps your tomato plant focused on making more tomatoes instead of finishing its life cycle. When harvesting, use clean pruning shears or gently twist the fruit until it separates naturally. Avoid pulling hard because this can damage stems or knock off nearby flowers. Handle harvested tomatoes carefully. Bruised fruit spoil faster and attract fruit flies. Place them in a shallow basket or container instead of piling them on top of each other. If you're expecting several days of extremely high temperatures, don't wait for every tomato to become fully ripe outdoors. Bringing nearly ripe tomatoes inside to finish ripening can protect them from heat damage while preserving their flavor. July is also a good time to remove any cracked, diseased, or rotten fruits from the plant immediately. Leaving damaged fruit hanging invites pests and diseases that can spread to healthy tomatoes. As your plants continue producing, remember that consistent care always beats occasional heavy effort. A few minutes spent checking your tomatoes each day is far more effective than spending hours trying to rescue severely stressed plants later. Walk through your garden every morning if possible. Notice whether leaves are standing upright or wilting. Look for fresh flowers. Watch for insects. Feel the soil. Small observations often reveal problems long before they become serious. Healthy tomato plants don't happen by accident. They result from paying attention to what the plant is telling you. A curling leaf, a yellow spot, or a wilted stem is the plant's way of asking for help. The sooner you respond, the better your chances of enjoying a long and productive harvest. July may be one of the toughest months for growing tomatoes, but it can also be one of the most rewarding. With proper watering, mulching, balanced feeding, good airflow, and timely harvesting, your plants can continue producing delicious tomatoes well into late summer and even early fall. Remember, gardening isn't about being perfect. Every gardener makes mistakes, even experienced ones. What matters is learning from them and improving season after season. Each year brings new lessons, and every successful harvest builds confidence for the next one. Here at Savage Harvest and Heal, our goal is to help you grow healthier gardens using simple, practical techniques that truly work. Whether you have a large backyard, a few raised beds, or just a handful of containers on your patio, these principles can make a remarkable difference. If you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up and share it with a fellow gardener who loves growing tomatoes. Let us know in the comments. Which of these 5 mistakes have you made before, and what tip has helped your tomatoes thrive during the hottest part of summer? Your experiences could help another gardener save their plants. Don't forget to subscribe to Savage Harvest and Heal and turn on notifications so you never miss our latest gardening tips, seasonal growing guides, and natural solutions for healthier, more productive gardens. Thank you for watching, and until next time, keep growing, keep learning, and keep harvesting healthier plants. We'll see you in the next video.